Hi there, my name's Annette. Welcome to my channel, Sunbeam Fabric Arts. I'm happy to be with you today. In my last video, I showed you how to take adding machine tape and use up your scraps, and we made this block today, and it's a giant block. It measures about 18 inches or so. Today, I'm going to finish that quilt, and it's for a Project Linus donation. So come along and I'll show you what I did. Here is the block we made in the last video, and I will leave a link in the description to that video. I'm going to need 4 strips of the adding machine tape scraps. I'm going to need 4 strips of 2.5 inch white and 4 5-inch charm squares that I cut down later. And that is for each block, and I'm going to make 8 more blocks. The first thing I did was pull fun looking 5-inch squares from my stash. Once I had enough 5-inch squares, I started ripping paper off of my adding machine tape strips. Once I confirmed I had 32 of the fabric strips, I started sewing those strips to white 2.5 inch width of fabric strips, otherwise known as jelly roll strips. You may hear these referred to as strip sets. My next step was to press those. After those strips were all pressed, I trimmed them to 10 inches long and 4.5 inches wide. And I also took the time to trim my little bonus ends to 4.5 inch squares. Now comes the fun part of putting these blocks together. I took my 10-inch squares and I sewed the 10-inch strip sets to the side. I flipped that whole thing around and sewed another strip set to the other side of a 10-inch square. Once that was done, I started chain piecing 5-inch squares to the end of my 10-inch strips. And if you decide to make a quilt like this, I highly recommend trimming down those 5-inch squares ahead of time to the 4.5 inch width. I should have done that. I didn't do that, and it caused me a lot of problems later. After failing my pinning attempt, I decided I needed to stop where I was and trim these 5-inch squares to match the width of my strip set. So here you see I'm going to do that. With those extra edges trimmed off, it is time to pin for real this time. I hate pinning. I don't like it. I'm always getting stuck. But with a block this size, it's very, very important to pin. Pin a lot. Pin close together if you need to. I was making the seams match, especially where the 5-inch squares came together. Now comes my favorite part, which is chain piecing. So I'm chain piecing those strip sets with the 5-inch squares on them down one side of these blocks, and then I will flip that all around and go back down the other side. And here we are back to my favorite part, the chain piecing. You can tell just by looking how large these blocks are, and that is why that pinning is so necessary. Once I had those blocks separated, I laid them out on the floor in a way that I liked. So the next step is to pin blocks together into rows and then pin the rows together to make the complete quilt top. I focused on pinning these white strips, making sure those matched above all else. I figured if the 4.5" / 5" squares did not quite match up, that would be much better than if the whites did not match up. So I made pretty certain that all the whites did match up together. And here's a good look at what it looks like to nest a seam. We've got one seam going one way, one seam going the other way, and I'm using my fingers to feel that those two seams are meeting, but since this is so critical to me, I'm also looking every time. Once that pinning was complete, it was a matter of sewing each row of 3 blocks together and then sewing those 3 block rows to each other. And if you will learn from my mistake, you will pin 2 rows together, sew them together, verify, place the next row, pin that on, sew it on, then verify. I made a mistake sewing my rows together, as you will see very shortly here. Here is the finished quilt top, and the blue blocks are not where they should be, and the lighter color blocks are not where they should be. That's because I flipped the middle row backwards. I considered leaving it as it was and calling it creative option, but I thought about it overnight and I decided to redo it. So it didn't take me too long to seam rip that middle row apart, turn it around, and restitch. I am glad I took the time to do that. The next thing I did was go ahead and take my bonus blocks. I wanted to make as many of these little bonus blocks as I could, and then maybe figure out what I was going to do with them. So I didn't get mixed up. I laid them out on the finished bonus block, and with them being laid out that way, I was able to take 2 blocks at a time and stitch them together the right way. So on small blocks like this, I use little clips to match up those seams, and I usually just fold them up every time and double check underneath to make sure that they are indeed matching up. And now it is time to stitch these little bonus blocks together and see what I've got. I ended up with 8 of these bonus blocks, and I think I'm going to turn these into a cute bag, a tote bag of some sort, using this houndstooth fabric to divide up my blocks. So I'm excited about that. It'll maybe be my next project. Hello, thanks for joining me today making this cute little Project Linus donation quilt. I was able to use some really fun fabrics out of my stash. I was also able to use up quite a number of scraps with this adding machine method. I will leave a link in the description for some of the products that I've used in this video. If you enjoy my videos and you would like to see more, you can hit that subscribe button, and also the bell icon will get you notified when I post new videos. Usually about twice a week is what I shoot for. I really appreciate you coming along today, and I hope to see you back again real soon. Bye-bye.